Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind. This is our 72nd episode. Excited to be back once again. Niles, how have you been the last week since our recording?
Been well. It's been a good time in Colorado. Things are turning to fall real quick, like I kind of said in the last episode. But, we got to see some friends from out of state very recently for a baby shower, which is always just lovely. And I think that was the first baby shower that you and I have been to for like ever. So, it's nice.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Just staying super busy with work on the grind and, tired all the time now. But that is just how it is. But as you all may have seen from our episode title, we're talking about Ahsoka this week. But before we do, some sad news from the world of Star Wars. The costume designer, Shauna Trepsick, who worked on this show and the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Firefly, and many, many more, has tragically passed away at the age of 56. So just wanted to call note to that. That's obviously a huge tragic loss, and wanted to address it before we get into the episode review. But we will get started talking about Ahsoka now. And Ahsoka, if you all didn't know, it's the newest Star Wars show for Disney Plus. And it is set in between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy once again, and follows former Jedi Knight Ahsoka Tano and some other returning characters from the TV show Star Wars Rebels as they investigate the possibility of Grand Admiral Thrawn's return as the heir to the Empire. Created by Dave Filoni once again, has various directors, including Filoni, Steph Green, Rick Famuyiwa, Jennifer Getzinger, Gita Van Sant Patel, and Peter Ramsey. And it stars Rosario Dawson, David Tennant, Natasha Liu Bordizzo, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Ray Stevenson, Ivana Sakno, Diana Lee Inosanto, Iman Esfanzi, and Lars Mikkelsen, and many, many others. Niles, what are your initial non-spoilery thoughts on Ahsoka?
I'm overall very positive on this series, and, I think in hindsight, sometimes when we talk about some of these Star Wars series, it's like, initially I'm very positive on it, like the Obi-Wan show, for instance, and then a few months go by and I start to think about it a little bit more critically. I'm like, well, actually, I don't know how I feel about that anymore. So I think my opinion might change down the line, but at least in this moment, I'm very positive on Ahsoka. I acknowledge that it's not perfect. It definitely is not. But I think overall I'm pleased with the narrative that we got. I feel like there were some creative risks that they took in this series as well. And I really enjoyed the performances. And, there was some fan service included as well. But, I liked it and I'm okay with it. And I thought it was all good overall. That said, I feel that one of the weakest elements of the show was the character growth and development for Ahsoka Tano. Which is, a shame because she is literally the protagonist. This is a character-driven show, and there was just not a lot of development for her. So I think that was one part of the puzzle that just needed a little bit more time in the oven when they were putting this show together. And I think, we'll definitely talk about this a little bit more in depth too, but I think if you're a casual Star Wars fan, you've only seen like a handful of movies and or maybe just the main trilogy, but you haven't seen stuff like Rebels or Clone Wars, like the animated shows, you're going to be lost coming into this show. You're not going to know who's who or what's going on, and I think that's going to be a detriment to the show in the long run, especially, if you're trying to grow the fan base or keep the fan base happy. It's like, well, some of them aren't going to like this, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to push back on some people who will push back on that, because I've seen it said online a lot, like, the show gives you everything you need to understand the events of the show, and it's like, maybe, yeah, but it doesn't provide any of the emotional context as to why you should care. Like, they want to find Ezra. Who's Ezra? Why does he matter to these people? Like, who's Thrawn? Why is he a threat? Who is Ahsoka? You're just expected to know all of that, and that's not fair for a casual fan,
Exactly. Yeah, like you can't be like kind of thrown in like that and not be expected to do your homework, kind of thing. But I think this show in a way it feels innovative to me in this universe that we've said before in this podcast. It can be limited and stagnant in many ways. There's only so many things that you can do in the Star Wars universe, and I feel like this show tries to push those boundaries a little bit, and I'm happy with that. And I'm, happy with the series overall, but opinions change. So who knows what I'll think in a year. But Dylan, what about you? What are your initial thoughts on Ahsoka?
Yeah, I am more mixed to negative on this. So first off, there are some things I liked, but it never really comes together for me. And the concepts and the plot I enjoyed. But I thought the character stuff never clicked into place, which is a huge problem because this is a very character-focused show. The first half of it doesn't really push the plot forward much at all. It's all about the characters, and I don't find their arcs or exploration very interesting. And I think the show's biggest problem is that it decides to keep the reasons for why the characters are the way they are very vague and mysterious, like all season, instead of exploring and developing their relationships. And it feels unnatural. Like these characters should not be speaking to each other in the vague way that they are because they know each other. They should be talking about why they are the way they are and behaving in certain ways, and they just are like weird and distant, and it's confusing. And I want to talk about the biggest elephant in the room, though, which is why was this not an animated series? The show, as I understand it, exists directly as a replacement to a planned Search for Ezra animated series sequel to Star Wars Rebels. It would follow Sabine and Ahsoka on journeys throughout the universe to find Ezra. That, I think, I would have much preferred for a couple reasons. But just like vaguely, seeing the story of Sabine and Ahsoka searching for Ezra and preventing Thrawn's return using a new animated art style would have been really fun, especially since I think this show's visuals are not very impressive for the most part, so I think they could have done more if they were in the realm of animation. Like, Rebels and Clone Wars both have their faults in both storytelling and animation, but at least, they have a look to them. This looks cheap to me. But I also think that, as you mentioned earlier, this show poses a weird challenge for more casual Star Wars fans, because it's a direct sequel to Clone Wars and Rebels in a lot of ways. And I think that's a bit of an issue in this case because this has shifted medium. Clone Wars and Rebels are both cartoon shows targeted primarily at young children and a much more niche section of the fan base, right? With Star Wars media, I think there is kind of a hierarchy in terms of how much of the audience is reached in each medium. Like, at the top, you got the films. Everybody who likes Star Wars is seeing those. Below that, you got live action shows. Most Star Wars fans are probably watching at least some of those. Then beneath that, you've got the animated stuff and the books and comics and all that. Nothing wrong with it. Not saying it's bad. It is just for a more niche audience. And so now you've taken a story that was for that niche audience, and you're making a direct sequel to it, but trying to target that broader and probably older audience and not doing the work to make that story accessible to them. And it just, anecdotally, I tried to show this to my mom when she was visiting. She asked me, "Who's Ezra?" and wanted to turn it off 30 minutes into the premiere and watch something else because she thought it was boring, looked cheap, and she could tell she was expected to know and care about these characters, but she didn't because she didn't watch a children's cartoon that aired on Disney XD.
Right.
And I think that poses a little bit of a problem because they want to continue building this story into something even bigger, which we'll talk about later on at the end. But it also leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth because it seems like Filoni and company just kind of kicked all the voice actors who have brought these characters to life for years to the curb in favor of bringing this into live action. The exception being Lars Mikkelsen, which I like Lars Mikkelsen in his role here. He's fine. But the way Dave Filoni said, no one else could have played Thrawn and Mikkelsen is so great, it's just kind of like, well, shit, man. Why were you so ready to replace Ashley Eckstein and all the other people who've made these characters their own for years? Why are they not the right people for live action? And maybe they're not. They're voice actors. It's a different skill set. I get that. But maybe that's a signal to not bring all those people into live action. Let the people who made them something continue playing them. And it also leads to another worry I have, and I want to ask you about this as well. So Star Wars, I think as a whole right now, is in a very concerning place in my mind. I think it is increasingly catering to a smaller and smaller section of hardcore fans, And this is kind of what I think happened in the late 80s and 90s with the expanded universe. All those books and comics and stuff that people wrote. And most people back in the day watched the films and moved on with their lives or just rewatched those 3 films. And that was Star Wars to them. But the hardcore fan base kept writing these books and reading them and video games too. And like, honestly, I think it's really cool that happened. I have some issues with like the EU stuff, but whatever. I think it's awesome that it was allowed to happen. But I think it's fine that happened when what it was essentially a long-running collaborative fan fiction of books was the majority of it. I think it's a problem now that it is catering to that smaller and smaller audience when it is expected to culminate in a theatrically released film that needs to make money.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that. Especially the theatrically released film, like that plan, because to me, I like that they're introducing these newer characters like Ahsoka and the Mandalorian. We're getting these smaller series and these stories on them. And to me, I see that as kind of people or fans, casual fans of Star Wars, can find things that they like in the universe and just gravitate towards that. I think like I'll kind of compare it to like the MCU in a way of like, you look at like phase 4 and 5 of the MCU, you're starting to see a lot of these different perspectives, these different it's just kind of diversified stories in a way. You get She-Hulk, you get Moon Knight, you get Miss Marvel, you get Loki. There's a lot of these newer like superhero stories that they're exploring, and while their intention isn't just to like diversify these stories, like their intention is to make money at the end of the day and bring in new fans. But I feel like the point that I'm trying to go there is that there's a lot of people who got upset about She-Hulk, but then there's a lot of people I think who also found themselves in She-Hulk and found like a story within the MCU that they liked and that was kind of reflective of their experiences. And it doesn't mean that they need to know everything in the MCU. They can focus on this one piece of content and find some value in it. And to me, I feel like we've kind of seen something similar in Star Wars with Rebels and Clone Wars and Resistance. Even, like there's a lot of these different stories coming out. Like you got fans for the prequels, you got fans for the sequels, you got fans who love The Mandalorian, and then there's like fans who like, I'm sure that there's some people who like Boba Fett. I don't know where they are.
I liked parts of it. It's not a good show, but I like parts.
It's not a great show, for sure.
Yeah, my worry is that it's not just that people have these different stories that they can connect to. I think that's great. My worry is that it's like increasingly becoming necessary to do homework.
Yeah.
Like if you liked The Mandalorian for the first season, you could just watch The Mandalorian. It was a show. And then in season 2, like you got a couple sort of cameos from characters from other things. I think in the context of that, it worked fine. But in season 3, it's just a Rebels sequel now. Bo-Katan is like the central figure, and if you're not invested in who she is from a previous thing, you're probably like, what the fuck is this now? I just wanted to watch the show about the bounty hunter and his cute baby. Like,
now
it's becoming...
it's culminating into this big kind of like Mandoverse movie, and like it feels like that they're going for something kind of similar to Infinity War or Endgame, but you're not going to be able to replicate this team up kind of feeling, this big climax like that. And I agree. I think I'm kind of in a similar boat as you, that like I'm concerned about where this is going, because I like the idea of just kind of keeping these stories more separated. Like we didn't, like with the prequels, for instance, we didn't have like this build up. It was like, here are the prequels and then here's Clone Wars. Like it wasn't like this convergence of narratives together,
and it wasn't as cross media either. And even if you think back to the MCU, when everything was building up into Avengers Endgame, all of that was just movies. And then now, where the MCU has started to kind of fall apart a little bit, and I like a lot of those shows, but now you've got two mediums going on. You got to watch all the movies, and you got to watch all the shows to really get the full context. And now Star Wars is following in that same path. It's like, you can't just enjoy The Mandalorian. You can't just enjoy Ahsoka. You have to know all of this stuff that interconnects, and it's becoming like, what's happening now? And they're trying to culminate all of these storylines into a film instead of into a television season, which would be the appropriate way to do it because they're building all the pieces in TV.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned about where Star Wars is right now, with the exception of like Andor.
Yeah. Andor's untouchable. That shit is amazing. But like,
yeah,
and I agree with you.
Visions.
And I think like Visions is great. Yeah, you're right. Visions is great. But yeah, like going back to like you think about like the older fans who like grew up with A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, the original trilogy, and now it's like, you fast forward to today, and it's like these fans are much older now. I don't think that they're going to be going back and watching all this stuff, all that homework that they need to do to understand the context of Ahsoka.
Yeah. Try to convince your 63-year-old dad to watch Ahsoka and explain to him, well, first you have to watch 10 seasons of 2 separate animated series to get the full emotional context for this show. And also you should have a working knowledge of who Grand Admiral Thrawn is from the fan fiction universe, from books written in the 1990s. Did you read those, Dad? Like, it's like, like it's kind of ridiculous at this point how much is expected of people to get the full context. But enough of my whinging. Do you want to do spoilers?
Yeah, let's dive in because it's
okay.
I think there are some
good
things to talk about. But yeah, let's start with the main character.
Start with Ahsoka. Yeah, the main character, Ahsoka Tano. Yeah, go for it.
Well, yeah, I think this is definitely a different on-screen interpretation of the character than we've seen before. This Rosario Dawson's performance, I think she does a great job through and through. I think she embodied older Ahsoka very well, and the character that we're given here in the show is far more stoic and reflective than what we've seen in Rebels and Clone Wars previously. She's and to me, this makes sense, like the representation of the character and how she's portrayed on screen, just because it's been many, many years since we last saw her in Rebels. And I believe that it makes sense for her character to have changed throughout the age of the rebellion. And, I appreciated the representation of her and the performance that she gave. But yeah, I agree that there just wasn't much development from her character. You compare her in the first episode to the final episode, and honestly, not much has changed except that I think she
changed clothes.
Yeah, she changed clothes. She's wearing white now, all white, and I think she's kind of embodied some of those teachings that Anakin shared with her, but like not really at the same time. Like his lesson was don't die, kind of.
Yeah, I have been consistent on my opinion of live-action Ahsoka, I think, from when she was introduced. I think I even commented on it in our episode on Mando Season 2, way back when we started our show. I don't like live-action Ahsoka. I think everything feels off about her, and I was having trouble figuring out, is it the writing that I have a problem with, or is it Rosario Dawson's performance? And I think that it's both. So first off, in this is more of a problem I had with her in The Mandalorian, but I have this problem with TV show Luke too. They're so fucking stoic and like emotionless and distant, and they were behaving like the Jedi in the prequels did. When I thought a big part of the point of the prequels is that prequel era Jedi are like they're all fucked up. They got it wrong. They got lost along the way, and it's like, it isn't the point that Anakin's fall to the dark side might have been mitigated if he was in a healthier environment that encouraged him to like share and express his emotions and like share what he was going through and be coached through it rather than repress everything.
Yeah, and and all this noise is just telling you all your thoughts are wrong, all your emotions are wrong, all your impulses are wrong, and it's like don't talk to anyone about it. Yeah, just suppress it, even if you're feeling those things. Yeah.
Like when he goes to Yoda and he's like talking about how he's worried about someone in his life might die, and he's like sweating and angry, and Yoda's like, you got to train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. It's like, my man, this is terrible therapy. It's not helpful for this guy in front of you. So I've had this problem with Luke and Ahsoka since they came to live action television, and it's just that, like, in the words of Last Jedi Yoda, who has become wiser, we are what they grow beyond. Luke and Ahsoka are wiser than the Jedi that came before them, and they have their lived experience that shows that emotion and connection makes them stronger, not weaker, and not more vulnerable to the dark side. So I've never liked their characterization. But I also think Dawson's acting is stilted in a lot of this. Okay. I just don't really love it all that much.
Yeah.
And she's just to make a comparison to The Last Jedi. Let's make some people mad. So, one, I don't expect Ahsoka to be similar to how she was in the Clone Wars. That would be silly. She was a child there, and she's an adult now.
Yeah.
I did expect more similarity to how she was in Rebels, because she's an adult in that, and maybe things have happened to her in between then and now. Fair. But let's compare it to The Last Jedi. When we see Luke at the start of that movie, he's very different than the last time we see him, to the point where it really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But that film spends an enormous amount of its runtime explaining to us in detail and showing us why he's like this. Ahsoka fucks about, nodding her head to the side sometimes and saying vague things, and then telling Anakin, I want to live, and that's how her growth is resolved. Was that ever... Did she not want to live before? I don't know. I don't know what she's going through, because she never says anything. You know?
That's so fair, honestly. She doesn't give too much information about, like, her past or what she's been up to or anything like that. So, I agree with you on some of that points. I will play devil's advocate on the presentation of Luke and not so much Ahsoka, but more like Luke in The Mandalorian, just because, like, I think because when you fast forward to Last Jedi, he's, like, completely changed his mind on the Jedi. He's like, the Jedi were wrong, they had it wrong the whole time, and everything like that, and you can see that his character really did break down. So, like, him coming off as, like, kind of stoic and like those Jedi in the prequels, I'm not as, like, adverse to it, because it's the kind of him at the height of his powers in the way, and the height of his, like, prowess, and he's, like, starting to build this school, and he's like, I'm gonna create the new generation of Jedi. Then he realizes later on, when he's, like, teaching Ben Solo, that oh, I'm not as great of a teacher as I thought I was. Like, there were things that I wasn't prepared for, and but I agree that I don't necessarily like his presentation.
It's just like I have an issue with it, because in TV shows, Luke is repeating the mistakes of the prequel Jedi. Yeah. In The Last Jedi, he is presented as a man who repeated his own mistakes. He, in Return of the Jedi, he goes to rescue, like, bring Darth Vader back to the good. That's his mission at the end of the movie. And then when someone he loves is threatened, when Vader threatens Leia, he snaps and almost kills Vader. And then he, like, looks at his hand and realizes, oh my God, I'm becoming my father. I have to throw my weapon down. And then the mistake he repeats with Ben is he looks into Ben's mind. What does he see there? Probably Han and Leia dying. And so he snaps to violence without even realizing it. And then it's like the same shot. Return of the Jedi, Last Jedi. It's the same fucking shot. He realizes, oh shit, I did it again. So that's why I have a problem with TV show Luke. It's like, Luke doesn't need to repeat the mistakes of the Jedi. He's already better than that. But he does repeat his own mistake, and that's where his failure comes from. So that's why I don't like the way Luke is portrayed in these shows, is because he is being presented as less wise than he actually is at that point. You know what I mean? And he does become arrogant, but it's his own arrogance. It's not the same as it was in the prequels.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Well, I think on the note of Ahsoka and Luke and everything, I did want to just briefly talk about the World Between Worlds episode with the Clone Wars flashbacks, because, like, the lesson that she gets from Anakin really is, like, I want to survive and fight. It's kind of a silly one. But I did really enjoy this episode, and it was nice to see Hayden Christensen back on screen and not behind a mask or like excessively digitally de-aged like an Obi-Wan, like in this one
he is de-aged here and not
yeah,
de-aged in Obi-Wan though. He was like regular in Obi-Wan and he's de-aged here. But I thought it looked fine.
He looks great in this. I think in Obi-Wan he just looks a little not exactly what you want. And this episode I think was definitely more of a fan service episode, just because I think so many fans, they have wanted to see these Clone Wars characters in their outfits and everything in live action. They want to see Rex in live action, and we got some of that. We got a small snippet of that, and I thought like the whole sequence is like of the flashbacks. It was dope. I really liked it, and I loved the kind of the cloud around them. Like it was just consistent. It was just really cool. It was like kind of like this fog of war in a way, and I think it redeems Anakin's character a little bit following the prequels too, because he's just so childish in those movies, and this presents him as far wiser than he was presented in the prequels in some ways. And I think one of the ideas that they introduced in this episode too is that like the idea of the Master's legacies, and it's kind of something that we've talked about before with like episode 8, when Yoda says, we are what they grow beyond. That's what a master is, I think. But I like the idea that they introduced here of like every master becomes in a way like their master and the masters before them. Like Ahsoka isn't Anakin, but his legacy lives on through her in a way, and like he will always be a part of her. And I liked that idea in this episode for sure.
Yeah, one thing I thought was so funny in this episode was when she makes like a remark about his fall to the dark side, and he's like, is that what this is all about? And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, Anakin. Did your slaughter of children and descent into fascism, like, does talking about that make you uncomfortable? Would you not like to discuss that?
Like, you're just going to gloss over the fact that you became, like, this tyrant?
Yeah, I thought that was so funny. It's like, yeah, man, it might be a little bit about that. It's a kind of a big part of what you did.
It's huge.
Yeah. And I love the idea of this episode, but I did find the execution a little lacking because, like I've said, I am not clued in to what Ahsoka is going through emotionally, so I'm not sure what she is supposed to discover here. So that's where a lot of the episode really didn't get beyond just being fan service for me. And I like Clone Wars era Anakin. It was cool to see Hayden get to play that version of the character, who I much prefer to his film character.
Yes.
But I just, and I liked how it highlighted just how young Ahsoka was in the Clone Wars. Like, just because it's a children's cartoon, like, that's not really an element that's dwelled on all that much. But, like, she is a child soldier, and that does affect you throughout your life. And I understand that's where a lot of her trauma comes from, and I'm probably meant to connect a lot of that. But my issue with that being her main hang-up, if that's what it's meant to be, is that we've seen her in Rebels as an adult, and that is not a factor in her character in that show much at all. So, like, why is it affecting her now and not then? Let's talk about that. Let's see some of that. But what didn't work was... Yeah, I'm just not sure what she was meant to learn from all of this, because they have all these conversations. I think some of it is just to get some emotional closure with Anakin, I guess, but then she's just like, at the end, I choose to live. It's like, okay. I mean, I guess you did get knocked into the ocean, so deciding to live is important, but I didn't recognize that was something she was struggling with for the first half of the show that she needed to grow beyond. That didn't seem to be what her character was dealing with. Yeah. So it was just kind of off. And I liked the idea of the smoke and everything, but it did kind of feel like it was more necessitated by budget than creatively motivated, which is fine. Do what you can with what you got. But I will say Anakin's Clone Wars general costume looked pretty sick in live action. It's a good costume. I'll give it props for that. And, I liked Hayden in this. I thought he did a good job.
He did great. It was excellent. And, I think again, it kind of goes back to this homework issue that, like, if you had watched Rebels, then you would have known that, like, oh, the last time that Ahsoka met with Anakin was during that duel with Vader, basically, and that's the last time that they have this encounter. That kind of serves as their closure between like, master and apprentice, and that's the last time that she gets to see him, and but that's him in his Vader form, and then now she gets to have this closure with Anakin. But like again, this is kind of homework.
And Vader as well. He kind of goes back and forth, doesn't he?
Yeah,
it's interesting, and there's some fun visuals in here. I did get kind of annoyed seeing people be like, "This is the best shot I've seen in all of Star Wars," when it like flashes between Vader and Anakin. It's like, no, it isn't. Shut up.
It's cool, but it's not the best one for sure.
Yeah, and then on the note of homework, though, just imagine. Well, like, and this has been a joke since Clone Wars started, so I'm retreading familiar territory. But like, imagine watching this episode if you'd only seen the movies. Because you're like, wait, wasn't like a major point of contention for Anakin in Revenge of the Sith that they would not make him a master? What's going on here?
Yeah. So he's teaching some kid now?
I always found that part so funny, and like going back to Revenge of the Sith after watching Clone Wars, it's like they won't make him a master, even though they did, and he had an apprentice for years.
Yeah, it's like,
just
what the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah, whatever. It's silly and it doesn't matter. It's just like a thing that they, hand waved for the sake of the cartoon, which is a good show. So I excuse it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's the saddest part of this show for me is that Ahsoka Tano is the weakest link in the show for me, like by a large margin. And I will talk about part of why later on, but let's go through some other characters for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the characters that we get to see back on screen is Huang, played by David Tennant. He returns because he was
Doctor
the voice
Who
actor
fame.
for this robot way back in the day for Clone Wars. I can't remember.
So this character was in Clone Wars?
Yeah, he was in a few episodes of Clone Wars. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I could tell the show wanted me to know who he was, but I'm like,
yeah.
Who are you?
I know. Yeah, I was like, I've never really seen you on screen, but I do remember him from Clone Wars. I don't remember him from Rebels. I'm not sure if he was in there as much, or if he was in there at all. But but yeah, I thought he was a good addition to the cast. He kind of served that similar role that C-3PO kind of plays of adding some comedic levity to the narrative, and he kind of he's also one of those characters kind of like R2, who knows everything that's ever happened in like the context of the chronology of the universe. So it's like he understands where everything's at right now, and he can kind of be that serve that role at certain times of like, here's the history. Oh, I know your master kind of deal. Which was kind of
I liked him. I liked him fine. I don't really have a whole lot to say about him, but he was fine. And David Tennant is an actor I like. On the note, we didn't put a note in here about it, but since you mentioned C-3PO, I will say, C-3PO showing up in that episode very much does have the vibe of like when it's a TV show spinoff and they couldn't afford the actor from the movie, so they got someone else to replace him instead. But given Lucasfilm's insistence on not recasting our original characters and instead making CGI nightmare meat puppets out of them, I much prefer that we saw C-3PO deliver a message on Leia's behalf than seeing a dead-eyed, computer-generated Princess Leia.
Me too.
That being said, if Han, Luke, and Leia are meant to play a role in this storyline that they are building, recast. Just let Alden Ehrenreich be Han. You can have Billie Lourd, Carrie Fisher's real-life daughter, who has done like body work for Leia in Rise of Skywalker, be Leia. She looks similar enough, and she is a working actress. And maybe, I don't know who the guy who does the body work for Luke in these shows, but like if he's a good actor too, just let him be Luke, man. Stop with the CGI thing. It's really gross, and in the context of the SAG-AFTRA strike, it needs to stop.
I agree.
But that side note on that. How did you feel about C-3PO's little cameo before we move on from that?
It was a little silly, I'll admit that, but I think it was probably the most respectful thing that they could do with it, and it made sense for the plot too, because, I think logistically, when you think about the narrative, it's like, well, who's the highest person in the New Republic? Like, who has the most authority? It's like, well, obviously Princess Leia. You can't bring her in because Carrie Fisher's passed on, and it's like, well, what do? We kind of need someone to pull rank on this fucking senator and tell him to shut the fuck up and let Hera do her thing. It's like, but it felt like the right way to go about it too, because it's like, well, yeah, we can trust on C-3PO to be the representative for her. It was a little odd to bring it in, but like, in the context of things, like if Princess Leia wasn't there, it kind of pokes holes in the narrative, and it's like, well, where is she? What's going on? And so I think it was probably the best thing that they could do. But I agree that they could have brought in like her daughter and just been like, I have a message to deliver on my mother's behalf, kind of deal.
Or no, I'm saying she should be Leia.
Oh yes,
Billy Lord should just be Leia. Even though she played a character in the sequel trilogy, like whatever. My point is, like, I thought this worked fine. But my point is, like, if these characters are meant to be, important going forward, as they logistically, like, probably should be. They're important people in this era. Just let them be played by real people, please. Disney, Lucasfilm, I'm begging you. But yeah, another character is Morgan Elswith, I think. She's like the Night Sister person. Honestly, until last week, I did not remember that this was a character I had seen before. And I was getting really frustrated because I knew the show was expecting me to know who this was. And, maybe that's on me. But maybe it's not, because she was only in one episode of The Mandalorian 3 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm expected to remember who this is. And I honestly, I still don't know what she wanted or why she was doing any of this.
That is so fair, honestly, because, she, like... Because, I was in a similar boat as you. Like, the first episode where she was introduced, I'm like, who the fuck is this person? And then I had to think about it for a week, and all of a sudden it clicked in my head of like, oh, yeah, that's right. She was in...
She fights Ahsoka in the Mandalorian episode.
She fights with the spear against her, and, and I thought that was kind of poetic in a way, that she's first introduced when she fights Ahsoka, and then she dies at her hands at the end of the series. Like, they have kind of duels at the start and the end of their relationship, which I thought was kind of neat. But it was kind of odd to be like, oh yeah, who is this person? Like, we don't know, like, how am I supposed to remember this thing from this one episode of The Mandalorian like years ago, especially when this third season just like came out and all this extra Star Wars content's come out. It's like, it's hard to keep it straight, honestly.
Yeah. I also honestly do not know what the Night Sister Great Mothers were getting out of this whole arrangement. I think it's said in a line that Thrawn, like, woke them up or something. But I don't know. They're doing a whole lot of shit for him, and he doesn't seem to be offering much in return. So I'm curious about what they're getting out of this whole arrangement. Maybe that's for a season 2 to discuss. I don't know. I guess we'll find out later.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. But their intentions are ambiguous, and I think that goes back to what you were talking about too. Of like, there's so many vague things in this show, and not just the dialogue, but like these Night Sisters. Morgan, it's like, was she with the Night Sisters? Was she just going for, like, did she want to like rule Dathomir? Was she like supporting the Empire? Like, it was very vague and unclear. But I did like the Night Sisters as a concept. It goes back to, again, the Clone Wars. We saw Night Sisters there in the past, which was cool. And, I love the idea of introducing reanimation into the universe, too. I thought that's one of the innovative ideas that I was referring to earlier, that, like, within this universe, I know that's been kind of, like, toyed with a little bit. Like, I remember in Clone Wars, there was, like, a parasite thing that could like take over your brain and kind of turn you into a zombie kind of character, which is interesting. I know it's been stuff.
Kanan like, gets turned into the zombie at one point. Remember, and like doesn't Sabine have to fight him or something? I don't remember.
Right. Yeah. It's been.
I like the Night Sister stuff. It's always like weird and creepy.
They're cool characters. I really liked them, and I mean, I think that's going to be the idea for Thrawn, like as they come into the universe, and he starts to set up his base, like all of his soldiers are just going to be like reanimated in a way, and they can't die. And it's like, it's just going to be fascinating to think of like, how is the Resistance and the New Republic going to fare against these soldiers that just won't die? Like,
well, apparently they do just fine.
Yeah, they survive. They figure out a way. We know what happens in the grand scheme.
Yeah, but let's talk about the New Republic a little bit. And on that note, Hera and her son, Jason. I think Hera is the character that best made the jump to live action out of the whole bunch. And I think Winstead did a good job with what she was given to work with, which wasn't a whole lot.
I agree.
But yeah, what are some of your thoughts about this whole subplot of the show?
Yeah, I like Hera. She was cool, and she felt like the Hera that I remember really well. Like the character.
Yeah.
I agree with you. They made the best transition. I like Jason. He's all right. I think he's definitely there for more of the younger fans, in my opinion. Like you need some kind of kid character on screen for all the younger kids to kind of get involved sometimes. But I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into that too much. But I like the continuation of Kanan's line this way. Like it's kind of cool, and for him, it make like Jason to have the Force powers. It's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm okay if he's around later. We'll see where that goes. The New Republic, I see what they're doing. I really do. I see what Filoni's doing and what the company's doing. Like they're trying to add more context to this new government structure that arose out of the ashes of the Empire, because we really didn't get to know it at all in The Force Awakens and the sequels. Like it's just it gets obliterated in the first fucking movie, and then we're just dealing with the Resistance. But it is interesting to see, because this government structure, it has so many inefficiencies, it has so many failures, and there's such widespread ineptitude among the ranks here, and it is kind of cool to see they're trying to add some reasoning for why the First Order was able to rise up and challenge the Resistance of the sequels. And I think the representation of the New Republic, not just in Ahsoka, but like in these other shows, The Mandalorian, Boba Fett to a certain extent, I suppose. But it's like that you get to see that like these ideas and values that you think that the Rebellion and the New Republic are about, they don't always translate into policy or into governing practices. And I think you said it. You mentioned this to me offline when we were talking about it. But like the build up for the New Republic and adding all this context for it is kind of meaningless in a way, because The Force Awakens, you don't get much context for the New Republic, and they're just like killed like instantly. It just crumbles really quickly in that movie. So it's like, why are we even spending time building the New Republic, like adding context around them? But
yeah, I could see like, and I mentioned this in my video I made on The Force Awakens a couple years ago, which go watch that if you want.
Yeah.
But I think The Force Awakens is a great movie and a great foundation for a new era of Star Wars.
Yes.
The one thing that I think it fucks up on every level is Starkiller Base. That thing is the dumbest piece of shit plot device in the whole first two sequel movies. There's a worse one in The Rise of Skywalker, but I think the decision to destroy the entire Republic was a really bad idea by Abrams and Kasdan. One, because in the context of The Force Awakens, who cares? Because it's not like we really cared about Alderaan in A New Hope, right? But it was Leia's home, and it's where Luke and Obi-Wan are supposed to be going. So there's enough there for it to feel sad when it gets blown up. The New Republic, everybody just seems like concerned that it happened. No one seems that upset about it. And also, like I think now what they're trying to do is they're trying to build it up, the Republic, as something that we will now go back to The Force Awakens and feel sad that we've lost. But
sure,
what I think the sequels could have done instead is just, and I think the story of the sequels would have been completely unchanged if they had done this. Just like have the First Order deliver a crippling blow of some sort to the New Republic, and then in the era of The Last Jedi, all of the New Republic is just paralyzed by fear because the First Order has like blitzkrieg across the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
And then they are inspired by Luke's sacrifice at the end of The Last Jedi and return to the fight. That way, we can build up investment in this New Republic because it's like a thing that exists and can be fought for in the sequels. So that's more of a critique of The Force Awakens than it is of this. But yeah, I liked the way the New Republic was portrayed here better than I did in Mando Season 3. I thought it was very weirdly portrayed in Mando Season 3 in a lot of ways, if you'll remember from our discussion on that.
Yeah.
But I liked Mon Mothma being back, and I do
great.
like the ineptitude that we're seeing, and that plays into what I believe is the case in the Force Awakens and the new canon materials. Is that like most of the Republic doesn't view the First Order as a viable threat, which is why the Resistance exists. Leia broke off and quit being a senator because she's like, this is a real problem and no one's taking it seriously. So that works for me. That's all fine and good.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to shift gears and focus on two of our antagonists from this series?
Yes.
Balin Skull.
I think we should.
And Shin Hati, the two dark Jedi, right? Or
Dark Jedi, I think, yeah. Probably the best part of the show.
They're really great. Yeah, these are just fascinating characters with amazing performances for both actors. And, rest in peace to Ray Stevenson, because he gave such a fantastic performance. He brought such weight and presence to Balin Skull, and it's a shame that he's not going to be around to carry on this character in the future. But yeah, I loved both of these characters. They were just fascinating to watch. And I think it goes back to that thing that you were saying earlier too, of the vague lines. Like we got, there was so much mystery around Shin and Balin. It was like, who are these people? Like, I want to learn more about you and like why you guys are Dark Jedi. And like, we got some more for Balin, but like Shin has like, we have no idea where she's come from or like who she is. Like, she's just kind of the Padawan to Balin, and it's like, can I get a little more, please?
Yeah, these were the characters that I found the most enjoyable to watch for the first chunk of the show, and I really loved that interaction they have where Shin asks Balin, like, do you miss the Order? And he's like, I miss the idea of it. Like, that was a really cool idea, because it's like, I like the idea of newer media, like The Last Jedi and this and a bunch of other stuff touching on the idea. It's like, yeah, the prequel Jedi fucking sucked. They were failures. They already lost the plot, like, well before Palpatine became an issue for them. So they were doomed because of their own design. Like, I thought that was great. But I got really frustrated in the back half of the show because I realized, we're not gonna get any resolution with these people at all. It's just when they got to the new galaxy, I started to get the sense that we were not going to close the book on them. And this is a big problem with this season, is there is no closure. May I have some story resolution, please, sir? Because we get nothing. And because basically the whole season exists as a mechanism to get Grand Admiral Thrawn back to cause problems for the New Republic, right? I knew that going in. I knew that that's how that plotline would resolve, so I was kind of hoping, Season 1's finale will be getting closure on Balin and Shin. We'll resolve that side of the story a little bit. And then in Season 2 or whatever, we got to deal with Thrawn because he got away.
Yeah.
Fine. Nope.
Boy, were you wrong. Yeah, because, I mean, Balin, it remains unclear what he's searching for on this planet. And I feel as though, his ideas to break the cycle of violence in the Star Wars universe, and it has something to do with the Mortis gods. That's kind of the things that I've been seeing online. And
that's the big rock statue, like the
exactly.
fucking Lord of the Rings statues,
Yeah.
It's the father and the son.
Yep,
which is a good arc in the Clone Wars, but,
Yeah, and then, Shin, I feel like she's kind of been betrayed and left behind by her allies, and it's implied that she's going to become this leader of the Raiders, the Scavengers on Peridia, but I feel like she's also dealing with this inner conflict within her, too. Like, you can kind of see it when she's, like, when she realizes that all the troops left her, and Ahsoka's like, come with us, she's like, kind of struggling to make that decision to leave or go with them. And I feel like if she returned, she could to the screen, she could turn back to the light. But yeah, I feel like these characters, they just didn't get the resolution that they deserved, and especially Balin, like, he's just got so much presence. I wanted to see resolution for him. So
and it's sad that Ray Stevenson will not be around to continue work on this character, and given Lucasfilm and Disney's track record with actors who have passed away, I'm concerned with how they'll handle that. But hopefully they just cast another guy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I just I really liked these people, and I wanted to know more about them, and the show just fucking refused to give me anything. And it also, I also just don't love that Ahsoka and Sabine and Balin and Shin are all just like stuck in this new galaxy now. I like that Ezra got back, but I'm like, okay, so I don't know. I'm just not interested in what they're doing in this new galaxy. I kind of wanted to get back to the universe, like where the story is happening. Everything's supposed to build up to this Thrawn saga. Like, let's get back to it. Let's see them interact and do stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
no, I agree. It's kind of weird to see where they're going, and yeah.
But on a positive note, a light positive note, Ezra, we get to see him again, and really good performance. I think it perfectly captures the essence of Ezra. He's just like fucking chilling out with a tribe of little like turtle animal people, which is a very Ezra thing to do.
Yes, I love those things. They're so cute.
I did think it was very comical how the show did not kill a single one of them in all of the events they go through. Not a single one dies, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
They're very cute, but it is very silly.
Yeah, it's absurd, but yeah, they're cute. I love the little race, and Ezra, the actor, he did his homework. I feel like he embodies the character very well, and even the line delivery, it's like, yeah, that is how Ezra speaks. Like he's written, the character's written well, like how he speaks. But yeah, the way he delivers the lines to him, like that's the Ezra.
He joins Hera in the like top tier of translated to live action characters.
Absolutely.
And the next one, she doesn't fare quite as well as those two, but Sabine is translated pretty decently well. I like the performance here, and I actually think this show would have worked much better if Sabine was the protagonist instead of Ahsoka. My favorite episode of the show was the one where she is front and center, and Ahsoka is just riding in the whale and not present. I think her motivation, Sabine's, just works better as the central motivation for a story. Ahsoka wants to prevent Thrawn's return, right? Perfectly understandable and noble goal. But as a character motivation for driving a story, she structurally just wants to preserve the status quo. She wants things to stay the same. Sabine wants to find Ezra and bring him home. She has an active goal, and it's relatable, and it's, she wants something to change. She is trying to achieve something. And I think for this type of story, an action-adventure space opera, I think that is just a stronger central motivation for a season of TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that argument. She definitely had more motivation to be engaged with the plot than Ahsoka did. I mean, Ahsoka, just wanted to prevent war, and I think Sabine wants to prevent war too, but she's more driven by, reuniting with her friend and bringing her friend back, and that, I think it's something that a lot of Rebels fans who are going to be watching the show will relate to more than than casual Star Wars fans who are like, oh, it's Ahsoka, and she's cool, kind of deal. Yeah.
And just her motivation forces her to make a difficult and ethically, like morally gray decision, She gives the villains what they want in order to hopefully find Ezra. That is an interesting character moment. Ahsoka doesn't have anything like that because her motivation is very simple. It's just stop the war. So she's never emotionally or morally challenged throughout the show at all. So she's just her storyline is just kind of boring in that sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I liked Sabine as a character. She's very cool. And I think she was written very well. How do you feel about her having the Force abilities?
Yeah, so I'm fine with it. It's not a big deal, but I'm kind of sad that they went this direction because I remember in Rebels there's an arc where she's they want her to have the dark saber, and she eventually just gives it to Bo-Katan anyway, but she doesn't have the Force in that show, or can't wield the Force, I should say. Apparently it's the rule in Star Wars that everybody has a connection to it and, through training or whatever. But I liked how, because she can't wield the Force, Kanan is training her, and she is learning to wield this lightsaber in a way that's unique to her. she's using her Mandalorian gadgets and fighting skills to do things that a Jedi would use their mind and move things with. And now that is lost because she can just do normal Jedi shit now. And that's kind of... And I was like, well, what is a Jedi who can't wield the Force, like moving things with her mind? What does that look like? And I really liked her like lightsaber in one hand, blaster in the other. I was like, oh, she has her own style, but no, she can just do Jedi shit now. And I kind of feel like... You know that meme where it's a big tank of water with a hole and it's like slapping duct tape on it?
Yeah.
It's like Star Wars writers don't know what to do with a character. Make him a Jedi. Like it's like the like Leia in between trilogies. She's a fucking Jedi. Finn, he had a really interesting character arc going for him in the first two sequels. What are we gonna do instead? Give him the Force. Like Sabine, make her a Jedi. Jason Syndulla, make him a Jedi. Like, can we do other things with people? And there are fans who are like, Han Solo can fly so well because he has a really deep connection to the Force, and that's why he can do it. It's like, how about it's more interesting if not every character can do the same fucking stuff? They all have their own abilities.
Yeah, they all got their own skills.
I just thought like that was in the way it's done in Rebels. It's so interesting and unique to Sabine, and I feel like that's lost now. You know what I mean?
I agree, yeah, because I think I'm fine with her being a Force wielder. I'm cool with it, but yeah, it's awfully convenient to have another Jedi right alongside you when you're looking for Ezra, and you're also a Jedi. It's like you got 3 Jedi on your planet. It's like, wow, this is 3 in a row. This is kind of absurd now. Like you guys are like few and far between, and now all of a sudden there's 3 of you.
Yeah, I did think it was funny in that fight where they have against all the Stormtroopers. One, the fight choreography in this show is not very good, unfortunately, and it's not shot very well. Like, the idea of Ezra fighting off a bunch of people without a weapon at all and just using the Force, great idea, but it's shot so horribly that it looks like nothing, unfortunately. But I did think one element was really funny. It's like they just wreck all of those Stormtroopers, right? But then when they're reanimated and become zombies and are moving much more slowly and don't have their weapons on them as much, all of a sudden now they're a struggle. Now it's really difficult. Like,
yeah, it's like, oh god, this is really tough now.
I understand like the idea. They're overwhelmed now and they have to fall back. But it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And I think, one of the things that we touched on earlier, too, is that, we didn't get as much context into Sabine's past with Ahsoka. Like, we get one line to explain why they had a falling out, and just, like, some context about, like, the Purge of Mandalore, like, all this stuff. And all that stuff is really glossed over really quickly. And, I know that she handed off the Darksaber and...
to Bo-Katan, who lost it. Yeah, because Bo-Katan surrendered it to Gideon, I think, is what the Mandalorian
Oh, right, that's how it happened. Yeah, thank you. I completely forgot about that. But
but since you brought up the Purge of Mandalore, that's a good point. It's like, it's getting to a point, like, this seems like it's a very important event for a lot of characters we're following right now, and I don't think it's something we're ever going to see, but I think it's very important for Sabine in this storyline. It's like, oh, her whole family that we knew from that other show was dead, and they died in this event that we're never going to see or really talk about.
It's glossed over. Like, we don't. It's the one thing in Star Wars we don't talk about. And I think it kind of harms itself. So yeah. But
as we've been alluding to throughout this, like, the show favors maintaining mystery over developing character relationships, and it also seems to address character stuff in really weird, and I will go so far as to say wrong ways. The biggest example of this is when we find out what happened between Sabine and Ahsoka. So, essentially the reason is Ahsoka thought Sabine was becoming a Jedi for the wrong reasons. Her family got killed in the Purge of Mandalore, and she is probably angry and, wants revenge and might learn to be a Jedi because of that. Okay, that motivation makes sense for Ahsoka because she saw Anakin turn down the dark path because of blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. That's a really interesting idea. And it works with Ahsoka's character, and it's fine. But what's the problem? We never see Ahsoka or Sabine talk about this or act like this has happened at all. In fact, we only find out about this from a scene where Huyang explains it to Ezra in the finale.
Yeah.
Why was this not a conversation between Ahsoka and Sabine? It's their character story.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I know. It's like, at least give them something to talk about with each other.
Yeah, because they just dance around it the whole time. And I mentioned, like, in contrast with The Last Jedi and Luke, like, that it poses a question, and it answers the question throughout the movie. This poses a question, lets it hang for 7 weeks, and then has the robot explain it to a different character. Duh.
It's a little frustrating.
It's a massive miss. I think it's a huge problem for the show.
Big missed opportunity.
But whatever, it is what it is. Maybe they'll get to it in season 2. But also, I have to ask, like, okay, if that was her concern for Sabine, what's changed? Why is she not worried about that now? Maybe Sabine has just been, like, better? I don't know. Because
I feel like maybe she had a change of heart a little bit, but yeah, at the same time, it's not clear. I think just time has passed, and it's like, okay, we gotta do something now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating because this relationship between those two should have been the main focus of the show, I think, and instead it is only hinted at and vague, and not touched upon by them at all.
Yeah, like, I think the harshest confrontation that they have was, like, when they talk about, like, oh, so do you know, like, that I betrayed you? And it's like, yeah, I know. And it's like, Ahsoka's just kind of like, it's like water off a duck's back. Like, she doesn't really care. And it's like, because I understand your reasoning and all that stuff. And it's like, because Anakin understood, like, always stood by me, so I'm going to stand by you. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But really? Like, you're not going to get, like, she's not going to get a scolding or anything. Like, it's just kind of like, okay, let's just move on kind of deal.
And the logic she and Huang have about it, it's like, well, maybe this was the only path for her. It's like, okay, that's fine. And maybe it is the right thing to do, but, like, I don't know. And maybe they're going to touch on it in season 2. I don't know. But that's where I'm getting frustrated. It's like, yeah, a lot of this stuff will probably be touched on in season 2. But the way season 1 was written, 1, I don't know if they will actually touch on it. And 2, they didn't resolve anything other than Ezra getting to go back. And for me, that's not enough. And I just don't find it interesting that they're all stranded on this planet either. So that's a personal gripe from my end. But,
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
One thing that a positive note that I got were the innovations and creative risks that this series took. And, people can have their own opinions. Doesn't really matter. And, I agree that it's kind of weird that it's not animated. Like, I do kind of think that this should have been an animated show. But it was bold of them to transition these cartoonish characters like Ahsoka and Hera and Thrawn into live action. Like, they look outlandish, like, in the context.
Mileage varies greatly between all of them, I would say.
Yeah.
I think it's the way they're lit, because none of the makeup for any of them looks like it's their skin to me. And that has not always been a problem in Star Wars, but I had they looked like Halloween costumes to me a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, some of it didn't look great. But I think one of the things that I liked in the show was that we got to see things in the Star Wars universe that haven't really been explored very thoroughly before, like Dark Jedi. That was a concept that we've never seen really on screen explored. Like, I think it's been kind of like the expanded universe and other stuff like that have dived into that. Or like galaxies beyond the one we know, which is a cool concept to say, oh yeah, we can travel that way now, which is kind of neat. Or the Purgle, the space whales, just cool to see them in live action.
I like the space whales.
And brought back, yeah, I like them too. We kind of talked about the reanimation, the dark magic, the world between worlds. Like, there's all these kinds of these. Like, not all of these are new ideas, but it is refreshing to see the universe trying to push the boundaries a little bit more past what they've been pushed to in the past.
Yeah, I liked the big gold hyperspace ring for the Star Destroyer. I thought the design of that was neat. And earlier on in the show, I was like, why do they need this for the Star Destroyer? It's like, oh, the engines are broken. It can't go to hyperspace. Okay, fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Or it was like, it looked like the episode 2, like Obi-Wan's ring thing for his starship. I thought that was cool. It felt like a callback to that too, which is neat.
Yeah. And I liked the different hologram tech that they had in that ship. It was just nice to see another design, so I like that. But we haven't talked about him yet, and we're reaching him at about the same point relative to our runtime as the show reached him in its, I would say. But let's talk about Grand Admiral Thrawn. So I have a couple thoughts. One, he looks ridiculous. The wig does not work at all. It just looks very silly. And also, I think he is written like a Saturday morning cartoon villain in the sense that he loses like every single encounter. And then at the end, he's like, well, actually, this works brilliantly for my broader plan. And it's like, how, sir?
Yeah.
and that works just fine when he is the villain of an animated series targeting like 10-year-olds, which is what he was in Rebels. But I need a bit more from him in this format because aside from Lars Mikkelsen's very good delivery of the dialogue, I don't feel like I've been given much reason to think he's that smart of a strategist or much of a threat. I'm repeatedly told he is, but I have not seen it yet.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, like for casual fans who haven't watched Rebels, yeah, I think they'll feel it very similarly here. It's like, yes, I feel like in that show, he does have this menacing presence, and sometimes he is one step ahead of our cast of characters. But even then, he loses every time. Like, he never wins. And when he's about to win, the Purg will take him out. They take him out of the scene.
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
He just keeps losing. So yeah, he's a bit of a silly character and just an evil Elon Musk. Everyone's making that joke.
Yeah, he did look a lot like Elon Musk, which was very distracting, which is weird because, like, I've seen Lars Mikkelsen in other things. He's a pretty sharp-looking dude, and he can look pretty scary when he needs to. He just doesn't here, which is another, like, I know, like, there has always been a clamor for more significant alien characters in Star Wars, and I get it. Like, most of the characters being human, like, statistically makes no sense in this universe, but it's like some character designs work much better in a cartoon or a drawing than they do in live action, and I think Thrawn is one of them, unfortunately. But maybe with a different wig or something, they can, fix it up a little bit. He just looks very silly, and
yeah, he does look silly. I think Mikkelsen, he gave a great performance, very powerful. And I loved it when they parked the Star Destroyer above the tower and just kind of docked it down there. It's like that was a great entrance for the characters.
It was cool.
Yeah.
And I liked his legion of stormtroopers too. Like they're different and unsettling, and the Star Destroyer is kind of patched up with that gold stuff too.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot.
Yeah, it's like they've scavenged parts to keep themselves going as far as they can, and it's like they're getting by, but it looks a little weird, and I like that. I like the visual representation of them.
Yeah. I do kind of wish that he had built up more of a force or something to feel like more of a threat, because it felt like he was just kind of not doing anything for a really long time, but I don't know. We'll see.
No, I get that. It is a little weird.
Final thoughts on where we go from here with Star Wars?
I think we kind of talked about it earlier, leading up to this movie, and yeah, I'm not quite sure if it's the right direction to take it. I like it being kind of separate, all these different things, but if that's the plan, I'm not sure how I feel about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if the plan is to do a theatrically release, like Heir to the Empire play starring like Mandalorian and all these other people, I think it's going to be a fucking disaster, honestly. I think it's a terrible idea. From a creative standpoint, I don't know, maybe it'll be cool, but from a business standpoint, it's fucked. Like, no one, like, the general audience will not resonate with something like this, I don't think. So I'm concerned more than anything. But yeah, let's do some, like, final thoughts on the season, I guess. What do you got?
Overall, I think that there's a lot of good stuff in Ahsoka. and I'm happy to see that stuff on screen here. But yeah, again, I don't think it's perfect, unfortunately. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah. Love the ideas, can't stand the execution for most of it. I'm still irritated that it was not an animated effort. I adjusted to that as the show went on. And I hope that it improves and it gets to be a show that I like a lot, but it is it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for me, which is disappointing because Rebels was for me. Clone Wars was for me. I like all these characters. I think they're great, and I want to see great stuff about them, but this doesn't work in my mind. So, as unfortunate as it is, don't love it.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But let's talk about some other stuff we've been watching before we close out for the week. What have you been watching or reading?
Yeah. So the other night, spooky season time, and so we rewatched Werewolf by Night, the MCU special release, I think about a year ago or so, and it's still I've really enjoyed it. Again, watching it, it's just like an hour long, kind of just fun, different thing in the MCU, and I just really like the aesthetic style of it. It feels akin to like the early 1900s or like monster movies, like the Invisible Man or something else like that. Like the style of it is really cool. I really liked it. Again.
Yeah.
And then we also have, since the spooky season, have you ever heard of the show Ghost Adventures?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's like it is kind of old, and the newer seasons are way overproduced. But it's like a bunch of like kind of fuckheads in a way just get locked into like a haunted house overnight, and they just try and provoke the ghosts, and it's just like, come at me, ghost, fucking like drop this axe on my head, do it, like kind of stupid shit like that. And it's just really funny to just watch their interactions. I get such a kick out of it. Yeah, so we started off on like the first few seasons of the show, and it's just fucking absurd. It's on HBO, like all of it, so it's like gotta watch it while it's there.
Yeah.
What about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so continuing on with Baldur's Gate 3 continues to be amazing, and I love it. I also watched Castlevania Nocturne on Netflix, the new Castlevania anime series starring Richter during the French Revolution, and the first season's really good. I liked it a lot. It leaves the story on a really interesting note, and I'm excited to see more from that.
Nice. I
have also been reading The Witcher, The Last Wish, which is a collection of short stories taking place before the novels and when the show primarily takes place. And I'm liking it so far. I've read a couple of the stories of the book, and I think Sapkowski's storytelling style is much stronger in the short story format. I had a lot of issues with novels 3 through 5 of the main novel series, and I'm liking the way he writes short stories a lot more than the way he wrote the novels, at least so far. But that's all from me.
Right on.
So we will be back in 2 weeks for our next episode on something. We'll figure it out.
TBD.
But yeah, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Niles, where can people find you online until next time?
On Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. Dylan, what about you? Where can people follow you online?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDay Movies, on YouTube at DDay Movies, and on Twitch at DDay_movies. Thank you all so much again. We will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.